Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CircuitPython Weekly for March 25th, 2009. That is correct. This is the time of week that we get together to talk about CircuitPython, talk about what our community is doing, talk about what we're doing. This meeting is held every Monday, typically, unless there is a holiday, in case it's moved. But it's held most Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. If we ever do move it, please check the CircuitPython channel on the Adafruit Discord for information about when the meeting is scheduled. This meeting is held on the Adafruit Discord. If you're listening to it later, you can go to adafru.it/discord and join us on the server. We hold the meeting in the CircuitPython audio chat. It is recorded. We post the video of the chat to YouTube, and then also the audio is then posted to podcast services as we to get. If you have a particular podcast service that you use and not available, please let us know so that we can remedy that and make sure that it's available to as many places as possible. CircuitPython is a version of Python that runs on microcontrollers. I am sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython full time, along with a couple other people in this chat, and what we do. So this meeting is in 5 sections. The first section is news, where we'll talk about various things involving CircuitPython in the community. The second part, we will talk about the state of CircuitPython and the libraries, where we'll get a general overview of what is going on with CircuitPython in terms of statistical view, and what's going on with the libraries with the same view. After that is Hug Reports, which is an opportunity for people to call out other people for doing great things. And after that is Status Updates, which is an opportunity for everyone to talk about what they will be, what they have done over the past week since the last meeting, and what they will be doing over the following week till the next meeting. Finally, we have In the Weeds, which is where we have more long-form discussions, things that are a little too much for status updates, but things you still want to cover. So if you have anything that falls into that category, let us know and we can weeds. With that, I am going to hand it over to Phil for.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. All right, lots of stuff going on. This week, if you look on our blog and then also the newsletter that's shipping out tomorrow, CircuitPython's in the news. Make Magazine calls Python the #1 tech trend. So that is big news and a big deal. Make has their annual board guide, and there's lots of Python running hardware, and they're saying that Python on hardware is #1 tech trend. Also, Scott, as well as Adafruit, was mentioned in an article. It was an article specifically devoted to squeezing Python onto microcontrollers, and it's an IEEE Spectrum magazine, which is a good magazine. We have links to that. Disrupt Yourself podcast had an entire podcast devoted to PyPortal. They got one. They reviewed it. And then Sophie, who's in our community, was on the Cool Tools podcast and talked about Circuit Playground and CircuitPython. If anyone happens to be in any of these types of podcasts or events or see something with Python and hardware in the news, let us know. We'll add it to the newsletter and on our blog. Next week, Wednesday, April 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, we're going to be doing a hack chat on Python and Internet of Things. Stop by hackaday.io. We'll have some blog posts and more. I think they're getting ready to do a poster and a post about it shortly. Some news in our world. If any of y'all were ever in 4-H as a kid, or if you know about this organization, it's about 6 million kids in the U.S. It's mostly known for agriculture, but they, of course, do computer science and astronomy and all sorts of things like that. We applied for a USDA permission to use the 4-H trademark so the kids could get Circuit Playground Express is running CircuitPython, and after a year, it was approved. So you can see a new board in the CircuitPython powered family. It's green, has a 4-H logo, and yeah, it's cool. And then speaking of, in circuitpython.org/downloads, you can see all of our boards. Right now, I'm putting in new photos and text. I can use some help with that along with everybody else. I get to those when I can, but if you want to update some of the text, or if you see a photo that's missing, there's times where we have to just put in a new board and a new photo. There's instructions on each of the pages on how to do that, or you can hop in the Discord and we can help you out with that. But I think there's another board being added, the U chip from Kickstarter. I think Dan just did that PR. And then last up, this is one I mentioned last week. Ian did a talk at the Free Open Source Asia conference, I think that's the name of it, in Singapore. And we posted up the video and some photos that he sent along. And with that is community news. As always, if there's anything for the newsletter, let us know. We add links. We could always use some help with that. And back to you, Kattni.
Thank you very much. Great stuff we have going on.
Yay. Bye-bye.
All right. Next up is State of CircuitPython and the libraries. Here we're going to talk about more of a statistical view on what's been going on with CircuitPython and what's going on with the libraries. We'll start overall and then talk about the core, and then we will talk about the libraries separately. So first of all, let's talk about overall. We had 15 pull requests merged across the whole project with 9 authors. There are a couple new names in there that I would like to highlight. Applio is one, and Mike Renfro is another one, a name that I haven't seen before, so that's excellent. We always love to see new contributors. That's great. We had 7 reviewers, which is fantastic. Thank you to everyone who's ours as well. We had 13 issues closed by 8 people and 18 opened by 9 people. So we are net up, but that is to be expected as we are currently finding bugs in 4.0 and trying to squash them so we can get to release candidate. Which leads me to the general overall statement, which is to say that we are working steadily towards 4.0 release candidate. So thank you to everyone who has been testing and finding bugs. The best thing that you can do to help right now is to use CircuitPython Beta 5 or whatever we put out as the latest beta. The more it gets used, the more bugs that we find and the more that we can squash. Also, there are plenty of projects posted to Adafruit's Learn system that utilize many of the new libraries that work with Display.io, which is a new feature added to Python in 4.0. And if you have the hardware, run these projects to test these new libraries as well, because we're working very hard to get them all as solid as possible. With that, we will move forward. So with the core, we had 1 pull request merged. We have 12 open pull requests currently. There were 3 issues closed by 2 people and 8 opened by 5 people, which, like I said, is to be expected because we are currently through the beta phase into release candidate. For 4.0, we currently have 18 open issues, which I believe some of those are translation. However, the rest of them do need to be gotten through before we can get to release candidate. All the issues on that milestone, that is what geared towards. We still have 5 issues not assigned to a milestone, which is something that we're trying to avoid. So if we get the opportunity, definitely look and see what those issues are and make sure that they get associated with something so we use them. Over the last week for downloads, for 3.1.2, which is current stable, we had 9,367 downloads. As always, stable is downloaded significantly more than beta. But for a beta, we had 335 downloads. A majority of those downloads were for PyPortal, it looks like, which also makes sense. It's a new product, and we're working hard to get everything stable to and a lot of the new libraries are designed to work with PyPortal, so it makes sense that that was the highest download. Download stats by language. Only 4.0 has languages. I is still only in English, but looks like the highest download behind English was pirate. So that is at with language download. And with that, I will move to the libraries. So we had 14 pull requests merged, and included in the authors are Applio and Mike Renfro, which is excellent. Thank you so much for your contributions. We had 7 reviewers. Thank you to everybody who's been reviewing PRs. Without reviewing, we don't actually get to a point with them, so it's as important as the PR. Someone review it. We have 27 open pull requests, which is pretty significant. But I know that we are currently working to get a lot of things ready for 4.0 candidate and 4.0 stable. So there's a lot of work going in libraries, and as well had Summersoft went through a lot of the issues on that Adabot puts out and fixed up a bunch of PRs. So that's also why we have a bunch in there. So there's quite a few in there that can and merged pretty quickly. But other than that, if you are interested in contributing, reviewing is a great place to start. Take a look at any of those and see if there's anything with. With issues, we had 10 issues closed by 6 people and 10 opened by 6 people. So we are at exactly where we were. For a list of all the issues, you can check the notes, as well as the CircuitPython library tracking issue on the CircuitPython repo, where it expands all of the library-specific issues as well to show you where everything is actually needing any kind of fixes. Once again, if you're interested in contributing, libraries is a great place to start. We have a lot of good first issues available, and that is what we have for libraries. So next up is Hug Reports. Hug Reports is a chance to call people out for great things. Too often this doesn't happen, and we are aiming to change that. So what we do is have this section of the meeting in a round robin, where I will start as an example, and then I will go alphabetically down the list, and then loop back to the top, and come back down to myself again. Just take a couple minutes to just explain your Hug Report, and it's basically, if there's something that you want to call somebody out for, feel free to do so. We'll get started as an example, and on. Typing is becoming a timestamp. All right, so first of all, I want to give a Hug Report to Maker Melissa for continuing to rock the library work and for her first guide. To Summersoft for digging into library PRs and libraries with commits since last release. And to Dan for continuing to squash bugs and for updating the frozen libs on Circuit. That I will go.
Hello. Sorry.
Hi.
Can you hear me now?
I
yeah,
can.
the microphone on. Hug Report to you, Kattni, for running this weekly meeting. I know it's fun and exciting and challenging. I also want to give a shout out to Maker Melissa for taking on the TFT display IO ports for all the different little displays. It's going to be really exciting. I think people have been chomping at the bit for getting all the OLEDs and TFTs working with display IO, not just the all-in-one boards. I'm trying to think, anyone who's helped me lately with testing all the exciting pull requests. I know Jason P, who I don't think is here, but was around and was testing out stuff and doing issues, as well as Jerry and trying to think who else. Jerry and I can't remember who else it was. So anonymous Hug Report to the other person who was helping. Maybe Maker Melissa. No, but it was somebody. There was somebody else again. Their name was in my head. It's okay. It'll come to me in like exactly 35 seconds. So yeah, and anyone who's doing PyPortal projects, group Hug Report to them because I think this is super cool. Oh yeah, it was our Dagger. Thanks Dan for reminding me. it's been super cool to see all the projects people have come up with, and a lot of people in the community who are not even here have been just like posting up images and Instagrams and tweets and posts of like, hey, here's a old project that I ported to PyPortal, and I'm like, that's really neat to see them taking old Chumby projects or old web projects and making them CircuitPythonified, and it's been very gratifying, which is good because all that Wi-Fi work was really hard, so I'm glad people are using it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Lady Ada. Next up is Maker Melissa, who is text only. So I will read off from the notes. Kattni for all the hard work she's doing preparing for PyCon. Our Dagger for investigating the displays and digging down into the root cause. Group hug to everyone who's helping with Circuit. Next, I'm going to read SCWNJ, who a group hug. Then there are some people who are not here, but they have notes in the doc, and so I will be reading those off. First is Sedacious. The hug report to Dan H. for tips on finding a cheap PC and fast-tracking the setup. And then we have Summersoft, who says a hug report to Dan H., Maker Melissa, Jerry N., Ur Haber, KJW, and anyone else I'm missing for all the bug hunting the last couple weeks. Hug beyond that. That brings us to Brent.
Hello, hug report to Lady Ada for hacking on a Thymo scale, playing with the USB protocol through Pulseo. Maker Melissa for all her work on the displays. It's really neat to see the displays working, not on all the boards that we sell that have displays, but on multiple boards. They'll make for some really good projects down the road. And a group hug to all.
All right, thank you. Up is Dan. No, I'm sorry. Next up is Charles was like, okay, so next up is Carter.
Yeah.
Not lurking.
I'm not lurking.
All right.
My mic work? You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I got a couple hugs this week. A big one to Scott. He spent a little over an hour live chatting with me talking about display I/O stuff at a real kind of like internals and conceptual way. It was really kind of fun. I'll talk a little bit more about that possibly in status. And a couple to Dan. He's chimed in on some forums and been helping out there. One, he just came out of nowhere where someone was having a PyPortal issue. And he says, give us more info. We want to track it down. And there was one this weekend about some frozen stuff in CPX that he fixed up for us. So thanks for that. That's all I got. And group hug, of course.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Now I think.
Okay. Hello, everyone. First, I'd like to thank Jerry for submitting multiple bugs with really great instructions for how to reproduce. And I already have 3 kind of bugs in process that we're debugging based on that. And then thanks to Maker Melissa again for working on all this display stuff so that we can support zillions of displays. Really great, and it's working out really well. Thanks to Deshipu for starting on a Polish translation, and he's also finding some nits with the translation process, which is really good for us to fix. And then to Jason P. and R. Dagger for the display work that's been going on. That's also really helpful. Okay.
All right. Dan. Next up is
Thanks to Maker Melissa for working on the displays and really clearing up those initialization sequences that had a lot of cargo cult copy-pasted stuff in them, and now they are nice and minimal. So thanks for that.
Next up is Jerry.
Yeah, thanks to Dan for taking on and digging into all these the file system stability issues and the USB issues that have been popping up, and really going after them. And just a group hug everybody. It's really fun to see everything going on.
Thanks, Jerry. And that is hug reports. Next up is status updates. Status updates is a chance for everyone to sort of talk about what they've done over the past week and what they will be doing next week. It's also done in a round robin where I will start and we will do the same thing alphabetically. So feel free to take a couple of minutes, talk about anything you've been doing, projects that you've done, code you're working on. This is also an opportunity for others to give tips and tricks, kind of quick help, and anything that is suited to a long discussion, we can switch to in the week. So with that, I will get started. Last week, I finished the TPA 2016 library. I fixed the I2C issue with MotorKit and ServoKit, where you couldn't use another I2C device with MotorKit. And then we promptly found a new bug in Blinka that didn't work with board.I2C, and fixed that. So we got that smoothed out. Cleaned up the code for the PyPortal NeoPick color picker and started the guide for the same project. So created the libraries milestone on the CircuitPython GitHub repo, so that we can better track library specific stuff, such as driver requests or code creation requests and that sort of thing. That way we have some for that, since the CircuitPython repo makes the most sense for where to keep that stuff. Better way to be easily visible to those. So this week, today is Library Monday. I'm going to be updating some library stuff. There's a series of repos that need API keys added to them in Travis, for Travis to complete the releases, fix those up. I need to update the CPX Cricket guide. We have a new UF2 for that, and or rather, we have a new release for that, and so I need to update the latest. This week I'm going to finish the guide for the PyPortal NeoPixel color picker, and then start the guide for the VEML 770. Possibly start the guide for the 808495, and then eventually on my list is to design a dual I2C potentiometer breakout. But the guides are first. That is what I have for my status update.
Hi. Oh, this
Hi.
microphone's so exciting. So my update is helping Kattni with all the things that she just listed as necessary. You've been rocking out. I did some more work on button and shapes over the weekend, and we got like a basic, what we're calling Piper card demo going. So it's kind of like HyperCardy. It's like you can define cards and buttons and text and audio with a JSON file, which then can run on a PyPortal or something with a display, and you can sort of make like basic interactive applications, somewhat reminiscent of HyperCard, but obviously not going to be as complicated as that. And I'm also thinking about how to deal with sites that have very large JSON files. I'm going to see, I think we can stream the JSON parsing data out, so I'm going to maybe hack on that this week. And that's kind of all I'm doing, just kind of keeping everything else running and designing some hardware and getting people spun up.
Great. Excellent. Thank you very much. Next up is Maker Melissa, who is text only, so I will be reading off. All right. Last week, got my Learn Guide published, first Learn Guide published. Wrote an example for the ILA 9341 display I/O driver and fixed the repo so it passes Travis. Added additional displays to the ST7735 display I/O driver, such as the T and the 160 by 120 displays, and fixed that repo so it passes Travis. Added code example to the Seesaw library to work with the joystick Featherwing. Wrote the ST7789 display driver. Wrote my first CircuitPython PR to allow the ST7789 driver to work. Still waiting on code review. Wrote an SSD151 display driver, but it's still being finicky. Code reviews and testing the button and shapes libraries. Worked on PyPortal calculator a little more, mostly updating. This week, try to get the SSD1351 display driver functioning, write the HX8357 display driver, update either Cricket or Seesaw or both to default I2C to board.I2C depending on what Kattni finds out, finish the PyPortal calculator, start writing a new Learn guide, and look into adding Pocket BeagleBone support to CircuitPython. Great, excellent. Next up is SDWNJ, So 2 weeks ago, the goal was to get SIGROC meter running. Dora Linux does not provide Python bindings libsigrok that SIGROC meter set out to modify the spec file, the file that drives the RPM package creation, to create a Python bindings and ultimately create a new subpackage. I was eventually able to configure it to create Python 3 bindings and create a new libsigrok Python package and added +py to the version differentiate it from the original packages. I'll look into how I can make that available to others. The grok meter is now running, so a future goal is to grok how it works. Last week, bought a cheap logic analyzer, clone of an old Saley 89, and accessories that including serial breakout. Set out to learn about SIGROC's Pulse View software to be able to analyze communication between I'm and computer. We'll continue to attempt to gain more understanding of Pulse View as well as the protocol my DM. And in the future, logic analyze all the things. I have notes for Sedacious here that I will read off. Last week, LPS 35HW board. This week, lab reorg and LPS 5HW driver. Next up, I have notes for Summersoft as well, which I will read off. Last week, NRF PDM in. Got through the buffer management, but I'm getting unexpected results. Trying to narrow down if it's my misunderstanding of built-in decimation PCM formatting or a problem with my buffer management solution. The one example I found uses the PDM perif, but is not designed for dynamic buffering, really scattered, so it's hard to ascertain. Did a few library releases and a few PRs to facilitate new release finishing touches for PyPI. Discussed adding an easy updated libraries list to Adabot. Current method is manual, use notes and messages from this week. Keep pushing on PDM in and Adabot easy updated list. That thus around Brent.
Hello. The past week, I published a few guides. CircuitPython wise, I published a PyPortal thermometer. Put your hand in front of it, and it'll show the reading from the ADT 7410 on the back of the PyPortal. And I published an email display with Zapier. I saw Jerry was using that a little bit last week. And I started a few new projects. This week, I'm playing with a PyPortal IoT scale project. Lady hacked apart inexpensive Dymo scale, pretty inexpensive on Amazon, and built out a library for it. And so I'm building out the library further and adding in some CircuitPython Adafruit IO code. It's going to be an interesting guide on hacking existing hardware, similar to what SDW is doing with the digital multimeter, but communicating with CircuitPython. And I also started hacking on another API that's not Adafruit IO. It's the Lifix light bulb smart light bulb API. It's a Wi-Fi controlled LED light bulb, and their API is really neat and similar to Adafruit IO. And I'm going to do a project where you can touch different buttons and it will change the colors of the bulbs. That's what I'm working on.
All right. Thanks, Brent. Up. Carter.
Yeah, a couple things. I did some work for the DRV 2605, which is a specialized motor driver that drives a little haptic. It wasn't running through all of the possible examples. It has like these built-in waveforms that you can play back on the motor to make it vibrate in various ways. These are kind of like what's in your smartphone for doing a little haptic feedback. And that was pretty easy, but also realized in the process the Learn guide had never been updated to use kind of the new style of the API that we had incorporated for that. So I kind of did all of that in one go, and also came across possible other issue where it's not using all 8 of the possible slots it has for storing waveforms. It looks like it's only using and mentioning 7 for some reason. So I opened a new issue on that, and we'll see where that goes. What else I do? Oh yeah, the display I/O stuff that Scott talked to me for about an hour on. I've been playing around with that, and this is kind of low level-ish. And after talking to him, I made some examples and kind of have been creating some like artifacts or whatever you want to call them. I'll drop one here in the chat. You can kind of see how I'm going in and trying to understand all of the various parts of the display I/O API. And maybe this will turn into a guide. And I got to the point where the next step after this, I was going into tile grid and trying to come up with some examples and explanation of how tile grid relies on bitmap and palettes. And I ran into some issues there that I actually created some open issues. And that's kind of all the progress I made on that. I think one of the issues got fixed. I think thanks to Radomir for that. So I'll go back and start continuing work on this. And then let's see what else I got here. Oh, I've been doing some stuff with the ADS1X15 ADC. There's a little simple PR that's been lingering for weeks now. It's like a one-liner PR that hopefully someday someone will code review that and merge it. But there's a few other things related to using fast rates on that, and I've been wanting to get back and bash on that a little and just didn't find time to get to that. So that's still on my plate to do. And I think there was one other thing related to the ADS1X15 that I don't have notes on, but you can go look in the repo and look at the issues for that. And I think that's all I got for now. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Carter.
Okay, so a lot of what I've been doing is debugging up to now, and I'm still in the middle. I found the source root cause for some things, and I've found the symptoms for some other things. There's some USB issues about disconnecting USB and having things hang when that happens. There's something about display I/O group which is flaky, and there's yet another flaky thing in which the slideshow runs and then suddenly gets what should be a string is an integer, and it's very strange. So we're still working on that, and when Scott comes back, I'll discuss some of these with him. In terms of PRs, I reviewed a bunch of other people's PRs, and they're in, and I updated the frozen libraries, which is simple. I probably have to do that again because I see that there's some new stuff. There's a new version of Seesaw in the bundle just now, so I may want to do that again. So it's still just a lot of bug hunting and fixing for 4.0. But thanks everybody still for helping out with that and giving me bug reports, which is what we need. Okay.
Stan, next up is Tishy.
Okay, so a bunch of things. I made two new shields for the D1 Mini ESP8266 based board. That's a GPIO expander and an accelerometer shield. And that's not related to CircuitPython directly, but it's MicroPython, possibly. I have finished the prototype for my secrets conference project that I can talk about. And let me. Yeah, I started working on Polish translations. I have about 25% of those done so far. And next, I made a snake game for the Halloween M0 Express.
Nice.
So you can play a simple snake game by touching. I used as input the touch for the thief on the board. I also tried to make a very nice Tetris thing with smooth animations using the new display I/O things that we have available. But turns out that the display speed, the refresh rate of the display is really not good enough to be able to play that game at any reasonable speed. So that is going to need to wait for after 4.0 when this gets optimized a little better. And yeah, I have a bunch of notes about display.io, about things I'm missing in there. I wonder if I should just create issues with those or have them for in the weeds discussion or some other way. We will see about that.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, thanks. Go ahead and jump back to 8th year's Bill.
Hi, Katney. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Bill?
Sorry, I needed to unmute there. So I wasn't planning on piping in, but I do have a couple things going on. We had some real success with the Xbox adaptive controller and Circuit Playground, and that's kind of coming back around where the next generation of people are asking, "Hey, I want to make this too." And so I was trying to get Microsoft to fix the issues that they had, but it's not going to happen in time for a lot of these folks. So I talked to Dan yesterday about what's the best way to make a version of CircuitPython that will work with the XAC. And I think we're going to have to either have some build flags or make a fork or do something for slightly longer term, probably a couple months until they finally do come up with a firmware patch for that. So I opened an issue because he asked me to yesterday, even though it's not really a bug in CircuitPython at all.
Right.
So that's out there. I'd love any suggestions on that. And then I'm also working on a PyPortal project that I want to show off on Wednesday. That actually will be a speech generating device based on open board format. And it was really close last week, and I just didn't make it. Partly because I guess the button code is moving, and I hadn't kept in sync well enough. And when I took the new libraries, it all blew up. So I need to fix that and get that working again. But it's going to be very cool. So I'm very excited about it.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Next, we have Jerry.
Yeah, so not a lot this week or next week because I've been doing much of traveling, but so I've been trying to keep my hand in things. Did get some time to test and find some issues with the file systems and USB on the PyPortal and I think some on the on other the things in general. So got those reports in and Dan's been working through them. And then I've been working on an RFM 69 project that and discovering some issues with that hadn't turned up before. So I don't know. It's going to take me probably till next week to really dive into them much. But I'm getting some timeout errors on transmit, which is a very strange place to see errors, see timeouts. But I'll see, and also it appears to be occasionally hanging up trying to do SPI reads. So I don't know if something underlying has changed or what's going on there. But I'll dig into it and keep posted. Make some issues if I need to or fix them.
All right. Excellent. Thank you. That is status updates. So next up, we have In the Week, which is where we can have any long-form discussions. There are a couple things that were mentioned that we're interested in discussing in the weeds. If you have an In the Weeds topic, please post it to the Python chat while we're discussing other things so that we're not around for people to let us know what in the weeds stuff they want to talk about. So it looks like first up we have Carter, who has two things. Would you like to take away?
Sure. The first one I'm pretty sure Dan can answer right away. And I'm just kind of curious what was the mechanism there that needed to be done in terms of fixing everything so that the frozen version of Motor got rebuilt into the CPX with Cricket build, the UF2.
What I did? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Because I saw that forum thread and I quickly went to the repo and I saw like, oh yeah, it's pointing to an older commit. So I'm not really, and that's kind of as far as my understanding went. So I couldn't help any further.
Right. So Limor asked me to make a new build, so I pulled the library versions all to the latest and just made a build for them to test. And then when they said it was okay, then I PR'd that. So
So will the auto builds have the updated motor in them now?
as of this morning, yes.
Okay.
So you can point them to the latest S3 build, so that all the PRs get an S3 build. So
because in the repo, there's a right off the bat, there's like a frozen folder, and it basically looks like it's just a whole bunch of submodules.
that's right, and so I pulled those forward to the latest released versions.
And that did require a PR to.
Yes, you have to do that,
Okay.
right? Because they're at a particular commit, and you have to advance the commit forward.
So there's no automatic mechanism that pushes those forward.
No, and sometimes we don't want to pull them forward necessarily. So,
okay, excellent. That's kind of why I'm asking. So if I ever come
Yeah.
across something similar, I have to ping you to say, hey, I think this commit point is lagging behind, and maybe we need to PR it to the latest.
right. I think maybe we could have Adabot pull that forward and submit an automatic PR, but it's not that much work. It
Well,
should
and
be
also,
done.
like you said, there's reasons not to. It's very similar to
Yeah,
automatically creating a new version of libraries that have commits ahead of releases.
right. You don't necessarily want to do that, right? And I don't. It's not the latest version of the library. It's the latest tagged version of the library. It's the latest release of the library.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I was just
Okay.
curious what the actual mechanism there was for doing that. It was kind of a manual and a PR process.
Right.
And then the second one is just a real quick general question. I was noticing this. This is probably already being discussed in the works, is whether or not there's going to be kind of a button or something to click on the CircuitPython.org webpage for the library bundles, as similar to how there is for the actual firmware UF2s.
Yes.
Good.
It's being discussed. Would like it to be where you download 4X and you go get the 4X bundle right there. And
Right.
same for what it was stable and latest. Want that available. I've been discussing it. Probably in the works.
Okay. I just was pretty sure it was being discussed in the works, because I think that was another forum thing where someone was having some bundle confusion. I was like, oh wait, the answer's a lot better now because we have a web page. And I went and looked, but the web page just kind of points back to the old bundle repo release or something like that. So it was still kind of the old method of doing it.
Yeah, I don't know all the details, but I know it's on our radar.
Cool. Okay. That's all I got.
All right, excellent. Next up, Bill. Bye.
So yeah, so I have I mentioned this earlier, but I think this isn't in the weeds thing. So when we did the XAC codes, all those different approaches to getting input into the Xbox Adaptive Controller, John Park did a lot of the straight jacks in the back, and I did work on the USBs. There were a set of issues with the Xbox Adaptive Controller USB host functionality. Basically, it has to be ridiculously specific to work. It can't be a composite HID descriptor, so it can't have a keyboard and a mouse and other things in there. It has to have exactly one joystick and 8 buttons, not 2 joysticks and 16 buttons. And the range has to be between 0 and 65,000, not between anything else. We usually do -127 to 127. So I made these changes, and I got it to work on a fork of not a true fork. I just grabbed a copy of 4.0 Alpha 1, whatever we were on at that point. I made those changes. I worked with Dan on it. We got it to work. And then I fed back to Microsoft the issues of, look, you need to be able to be, here are the issues we're seeing. And unfortunately, recently I got back from them. Yes, we love this. Thank you for the feedback. It's going to be a while before, meaning months, before we can get an updated firmware out. So I would like to be able to support people using the XAC. There's a lot of momentum on it. We've got a conference in April. There's a lot of things I would like to be able to do with this. And I think, if you watch some of these videos with these kids, there's a lot going on here that we want to be able to support, certainly with CircuitPython. So my question really is, what's a way to be able to support this as a peripheral that is different than a standard gamepad in CP? Is it, let's make a fork and keep it up to date and have a process for keeping it up to date with 4.0 as it goes forward? Is it, let's have a build flag that we can put on it? Is it, is there something we can put in a boot.py that lets us switch between the different descriptors? I'm kind of open to any of those because I know this is a hack and we don't really want to code to the bugs and support them doing something non-standard. Sounds
Right.
like Microsoft, old school Microsoft. But I just would like the feedback from the group on how you'd like to handle something like this.
I mean, to me, it sounds like for the fact that it is in theory a temporary solution, a fork might be the best option, but Dan maybe.
Yes, I talked to, I chatted with Bill about this last night, and I meant to bring it up in our internal, but I forgot. So, so I put in a query to a little more. So I think in the very short run, we can just make some kind of compile option or just a fork. Okay. And Bill can help me test it. In the long run, we do want to have dynamic USB descriptors. And I don't know whether that's 4x or 5. We have to sort of figure out what our priorities are. But sort of, I think it's not going to necessarily solve Bill's problem for in the next 2 weeks, other than to hack something up so he can show something. But this is an example of, yes, we want it to behave. We want CircuitPython to behave as an unusual and specific HID device, and it's nice to be able to provide some mechanism for doing that. And,
yeah, so just so you don't make something too specific for me. As far as my demonstration, I can use the build that I have. I have UF2s that I can use on mine.
Okay.
They work fine. That's not the issue. The problem is that if I'm going to write up a guide or refer people to here's how you do it, right? I can say here's my UF2 from version alpha 1, 4.0 alpha 1, or any version you tell me to split it off from, and that will work. I'm going to have to make one for every type of hardware they're going to want to work with. And it's hard for me to give a guide, especially if it's going to be on the Adafruit. If I make an Adafruit guide, it's going to be, here's a special version of CircuitPython. Do we want to do that? That's a fine answer to me. I want the group's answer, not mine, right?
We have done that.
Yeah.
Even for our own hardware. So it's not out of the question. And especially if it sounds like it's legitimately a temporary solution, as in, it sounds like legitimately Microsoft will eventually come through.
Yeah, I think that one of two things will happen. They will update their firmware to be more standard, and I think it's an and, not an or. And we will add the ability to change the USB descriptor at runtime. Right? Does that sound right, Dan? At some point?
Yes. I mean, we definitely want the latter feature for a lot of reasons. And if you want to, we shipped Neo Trellis with an unusual UF2, and we can continue to do that. I could help you to bring the current, like, really old one up to date if you want. Like, I could do some merging or something like that.
I can probably just do it. I can probably just do a diff and a patch. It's not that much code.
Yeah. I think it's not in the code that it uses has not been changed. So I think it's probably, you can probably just bring it up to date. Yeah, and I would say, like, yes, there's already even an open issue, I think,
for the MIDI.
Yeah, right, for MIDI, right, and turning things on and off too. And for instance, some other people have wanted boot keyboard. Right now, the keyboard is part of a composite adapter. That means it doesn't work when you're talking to a host computer that's booting, because BIOSes expect a simpler definition and stuff like that. So All right, we'll do that now. And I'm actually chatting on the side with Lemore about this too in text. So I would say.
Sorry,
yes,
that would go to boot.py, right? Before the USB is initialized.
Right. That's where we have to do it if we want to make it dynamic. Yeah, exactly. But Scott has thought about this for a while now, that it's something that he would like to do. So
I can offer as much testing on this stuff as you want. You know, as you get, I'm happy to test whatever solutions you guys want to try. I'm also, happy to fork this temporarily, or to do whatever you guys want. Okay.
Right. I would say bring it, make a fork for yourself, bring it up to date, and just build it, and we can point to a build of your fork. We can upload UF2s in the Learn guide that people just download from there. It doesn't have to be off-site. It can be part of the Learn guide for now. That's fine. I think that's really fine. And anybody who's going to use it will use that, and then eventually we can update the Learn guide. I think that's the way to do it.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Okay, good.
Excellent. Does anyone else have a topic? I saw. All right. TG Techie, do you have audio?
Yes, I do, but there are other people. So if they're too loud, don't mind switching. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. So I've been fiddling around with the same old stuff, but I ran into a very odd thing. I'm referencing the same variable from two places, and I'm getting not only different memory addresses, but different IDs. And it doesn't seem how it should be. And it's only when I'm calling. I'm sorry, I'm referencing a variable from inside of a function, and from outside of a function, and I'm not getting the same variable ID.
Okay.
And I can go into more depth, but I was told that long living can sometimes do that if it was done before the fix.
We want to make sure that it's not just a Python language thing, that there are scopes of, as Carter is mentioning in chat. Yeah. So if you want to post this in in the forum or something, or put it up on Discord, we can look at your code and see what the issue is.
Sure.
And or post it as an issue, and we'll close it if it's a language thing.
Yeah. I can do a issue. That's fine with me.
Yeah, if you think it's not a language thing, then go ahead and make an issue. That's the best way to do it. Yeah, because then we'll have a reproducible case. If it's
Thank you.
Sure.
Excellent. Up. This has been the CircuitPython week, March 25th, 2009. I want to thank you for participated, listening in, part of this. This meeting held on Discord, afru.it Discord. And if you want to chat with us, are there all week, not just during. So feel free to Python channel for assistance, help with Python. And we all week now. So thank you again to everyone. Out on. We really appreciate everything today. Thanks everybody.